Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video I want to answer a question that a lot of you have asked about FMS management, and that is the question about ABEAM points. When would be using them and what are they good for? In today's video I want to give you a good guide to decide when you are getting a direct, are you going to use an ABEAM point or are you not going to use an ABEAM point. So let's get right into this. First of all, what are ABEAM points? So when you enter a direct, for example looking at our route today, we could just make it a little bit more straight by flying direct to Abuka. So direct given by air traffic control to Abuka. Let's go ahead and enter that down here, and we can now either decide between selecting direct to or selecting with ABEAMs. Now first of all, in terms of your ATC clearance, it makes no difference at all. As you can see, even with the current insertion towards Tuzok, the ABEAM Doden does not even show in the navigation display. So for our direct to Abuka, we've got to ask ourselves a simple question. Do we need to know when we are ABEAM any of the other waypoints that are along our track to this waypoint Abuka? And what could be possible reasons for the need to know when we are ABEAM any of those waypoints? So there are two possible reasons. The first one is that we might need any one of them for a fuel check. So in the current situation of flight, where we are still climbing, we know that we are not going to do a fuel check until we reach the top of the climb. So for this reason, we could say, no, we don't need to know when we're ABEAM any of those waypoints. The other question we need to ask ourselves is any of those waypoints relevant for anything we need within our flight? That could, for example, be the transition from one FIR to another, which some airlines require you to mark on the navigation display, or any other possible reason that could come up within the scope of your flight. So right now, we know that since we will be climbing until shortly before we reach Abuka, we will not need any of those waypoints, and therefore we can select the function direct to, and we do not need to select the ABEAM point. So let's go ahead and enter the direct to over here, and now we know that we're flying towards Abuka. Now, let's say that we were sent even further towards Yutaba over there. So let's go on to direct to, and we select Yutaba. Now we are in a similar situation that we were earlier, but now we know that we might need a waypoint to conduct a fuel check, especially on a very short flight like this one from Düsseldorf to Innsbruck, which is only a 50-minute flight. For this reason, for a direct like this, I would opt to select a ABEAM point down here, and now you can see that the airplane is giving me a point called AB, Abuka, on the point of our new route, exactly ABEAM the waypoint Abuka. So let's go ahead and select this. As you can see, the airplane still flies to Yutaba as we had selected for the original direct, and the new waypoint Yutaba is also shown up here on the nav display. However, down here on the FMS we can see ABEAM Abuka. What is that good for? Well, now we could do the fuel check over there, or literally anything else that we may want to do with that waypoint. For example, knowing which altitude we may be able to reach there, and so on. But what can you do if you mess this up? So let's say we wanted to go to Yutaba, we had fast fingers, we didn't think, we entered it, and now Abuka is gone. So that is obviously going to be a little bit of an issue if we still need that waypoint. But how can we get it back? Like, how can we add an ABEAM point back to our route? Now, there's two possible ways of doing this. First of all, obviously, you could use the secondary flight plan, where you kept a copy of the active flight plan. Did you? And you could just re-enter the direct, but you don't necessarily need to do that. There is another way we can do this. So let's go down into the fix info page. And on the fix info, we are going to select Abuka. Now, as you can see, Abuka is now showing on the nav display. Obviously, with a waypoint as close to our flight plan as this one, you could simply take it visually, or you could, for example, just draw a radial. What you can also do is press the ABEAM button down here. By doing this and pressing it for the first time, you can see that the airplane is now drawing a line from the waypoint in question directly on the shortest possible way to our route. So that's the blue line you see over here. But here comes a little trick. If you press the button again, then you can see it reinserts the ABEAM point, even though with a slightly different name. Now it has only 5 letters, still starting with AB, and then the first 3 letters of the waypoint, so the name was Abuka, so it's a babu. Now, before you can enter that, especially if you're already on a direct to a waypoint, you need to pull the heading knob to go into heading mode, and then you can press insert, and that's going to insert the new waypoint along your route, like this. And now we can just push heading again, and we're back in nav mode, and that's it. Now, a small thing worth noting over here: if you use this method over the fixed page to reinsert the waypoint, then you will actually get it as an actual waypoint and not as an ABEAM point as we had it earlier. So you can see now we actually see this one on the top of the nav display. Of course, you then always have the option just to go direct, select the original waypoint again, and just selecting ABEAMs down here. You don't necessarily need to do that unless you're in an oceanic environment, which today we're not, so for that reason we can simply make that original selection again. And now you can see we are going back towards Yutaba. We still have that information of the fixed page available over here as well, and we now have predictions for that waypoint as well. For example, going to the next page over here, we can see we're going to have 3.5 tons of fuel over there. Alright, and that's what we've got about ABEAM points. So to summarize, when would you select an ABEAM? By default, if ATC gives you a direct, you do not select an ABEAM unless there is an actual reason to do that. Such a reason could, for example, be the necessity to conduct a fuel check at a certain waypoint, or anything else that may come to your mind that may be useful for the conduct of the flight. Now, ABEAM points are not visible to air traffic control. However, points inserted through the fixed page are visible to air traffic control when they check what you've got in your FMS. Again, mostly relevant on oceanic flights. Now, if you forget to insert an ABEAM point, you can reinsert it through the fixed page, so lateral revision of the from waypoint, then fix info, enter the waypoint and select ABEAM in the line 5 left. And this, by the way, also gives you quite a couple of predictions already, like the time, the distance, and the predicted altitude you're going to have there, in case you're just looking for that type of information. Alright, and that's pretty much everything that we got on the topic of ABEAM points, so thank you very much for watching, everyone. As always, leave your feedback in the comments below the video. If you have suggestions for any other tutorials or stuff that may interest you, put it into the comments below, and with all of that out of the way, thank you very much for watching. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.